Yeah, so I'm going to give you a quick demo of the Fusing platform. It's a workflow automation platform. So I'm going to sign into my account and give you a quick overview, and then we're going to do something useful with it. So first of all, we have the notion of a workflow. So these are workflows that do things. So for example, this particular one here tests a website. And so it's driven by a timer. So every 10 minutes, this workflow will run. Once it's deployed, it can run. It'll run some JavaScript code, and this will hopefully always fail because we're hitting a site called nonsense blah blah blah. If it were to pass, this workflow would stop. If it fails, it basically throws an exception, which gets caught here, and then it will continue running down here. And so basically what I've done is I'm having it send me an email saying my website's down. So it's a really, really simple application. And it's also going to phone me at home and tell me my website's down. So that's a workflow. So it runs top to bottom. These first two blocks here are what's known as trigger blocks. They don't actually do anything, but they request a resource. So for example, a webhook basically allocates a webhook endpoint on our server, and which means this workflow can be run when you hit this. So you can copy this and then do a curl, blah, 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 and this will run this workflow. Of course, you can name the blocks. This one's a timer emitter. So we're basically running this block every 10 minutes. We could do day of month, the 3rd, the 11th, blah, 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 in the American Denver time zone, we could run it. Days of week at a particular time. Again, it's all time zone driven based on this. Let's just run it every 10 minutes. Okay, so then we have the notion of connectors. So for example, if we want to authorize this account to send emails, we can use OAuth 2 flows. So let me create another one. So I'll create a Gmail 4, and basically I'm going to give this workflow, or this account actually, it's this team within an account, access to a Gmail account. So I click here, and basically it'll open up an OAuth 2 flow and get credentials from Google, standard OAuth refresh token, access tokens and refresh tokens, which our platform manages. So the idea behind the Fusing platform is that we manage all these authorizations for people, and we automate the process of hitting their APIs. So you don't. It's a no-code platform essentially, with the ability to write arbitrary, what we call any code. Right now we support JavaScript. Very soon we'll support Python, and then we can also, from day one, we can support the running of arbitrary binary files, Linux-based. Specifically Amazon AWS the Amazon Linux 2, if you want to build your own binaries. They can be added to a workflow with these attachments. So if you add attachments to a workflow, basically what happens is the attachment will be brought in to the workflow every time it's run. And so this could be a binary file that you want to run. It could be say a neural network model that you want to run in PyTorch or in TensorFlow, for example. So this would be present. So for example, if you wanted to, if your input was via webhook from a webcam, and you wanted to send an email every time we detected a mountain lion going past a camera, we could do that. Basically, we would pass the image via the webhook here. We can ingest that appears on a variable once it's ingested, and then that can be picked up by either JavaScript or Python code and then acted upon. So in Python, for example, we could run it through an AI model. And then we can do various things. So for example, in that case where we're looking for a mountain lion, if this code was a Python block running TensorFlow, a model based on this model attachment, for example, then we could stop the workflow like we do here in JavaScript if it's not a mountain lion, and then continue and email the park ranger or whatever that we've seen a mountain lion, and then they could take various action. So things like Twilio, phone calls, Gmail, we can do a bunch of different things. In fact, let me show you what blocks we actually have. So we have Airtable, so you can create records in an Airtable database, send emails, Node.js, run Python code, we send Slack messages. This is just a proxy for a test block. The timer emitter you've seen, and the webhook emitter you've seen. And then we can make phone calls, send out SMSs. And we have plans for literally hundreds and hundreds of different integrations with different platforms, ultimately. So let's develop a new workflow that, for example, let's just go through the process. Let's grab the temperatures every hour and send them to ourselves. So the first thing we would want to do, let's just start with a Node.js block, and let's just write the kind of logic that we want. So the cool thing about this is, and this will work the same for Python, is you can just import any package from npm.js, and in the Python world that would be from PyPy. And then we take care of bundling these packages into the workflow that gets executed. You don't have to worry about packaged JSON files or requirements.txt files or anything like that. We take care of all that for you based on, we actually parse the JavaScript or the Python or whatever and create all these requirements, package them all up so that it'll run. And then basically we provide the environment and the means of authorizing to these various services. So Axios is a library in JavaScript that basically allows you to HTTP endpoints and whatnot. So for example, if we wanted to get the temperature, then basically let's start with a couple other things. So let's import converter from let's see, Node temperature converter. It's another package for just doing basic temperature conversions. And then let's also create a variable here with our location. So I'll call it, we'll put a name to Denver, and then a latitude. And the latitude here is 39.732, and the longitude, which is minus 104.9903. So that's my location here. And then we actually get to run our code inside this run function here. So let's just do something stupid and just return a block, a hello. Let's make that text, and this will show you the kind of the development loop. So we can save this workflow out. Let's just do that first. So we should see temperatures as appear out here. So it's appearing here. Let's go back in and edit it. So we've created this block, and we've got a little bit of code in here. So let's just run this block. You'll see here that there are results and everything's undefined because we haven't done anything. Actually, let's rename this block to be something more meaningful, because that's going to be important in a little while. So Node.js, something like that. I'll save it again. And basically, let's just test this block. So you'll see that there are no results. They're all basically empty here. If we run this block, this basically packages up all this code, so it does all those imports, does everything, and basically runs them. We get some timing, so it took 387 milliseconds to run within a Lambda on AWS. And then we get this returns variable here, which we can actually copy, and then we can use returns from one block in subsequent blocks. So we can put them into strings, we can, using interpolation, or we can feed them forward to the next stages of blocks. So let's proceed with this demo and get the weather, actually get it properly. So first thing we'll do is we will basically grab the, name, latitude, longitude, equals location. And then we'll use this. So let response, we're using let because we're going to just override it, equals await. And then we will axios.get. So we're going to do a HTTP GET request on this, and we're going to go HTTPS API.weather.gov points, and then we want latitude and longitude. So it does autofill. So this is basically the same editor that Microsoft uses. So in Visual Studio Code or Visual Code. So we'll use longitude, and basically that should give us a response, and we can just throw that response actually on this variable here if we want to take a look at it while we're debugging everything. So we can just go, and Axios puts everything, so let's go and that could be a response.data. If this throws an exception, then we'll get an error, but hopefully this will work. So let's just save this and let's run this block. So we'll give it a first test. And so what should appear, hopefully, if this runs successfully, which we're hoping it will, we've got this R variable, which is this variable here, response data, and you can see that it's got a context and a bunch of stuff. And properties here, and the cool thing here is we want to get a new URL to hit next, which is basically we're gonna hit this. So to get actually the forecast. So this is for. So then we'll go basically. So we want to go destructure this const and then forecast hourly. So we get the forecast hourly URL equals response.data properties. Okay. And then basically that's going to get a URL that we're going to hit. So let's just set the temperature that we're going to get back is going to be in Fahrenheit. Let's just make it 100 because this could fail. And then we'll write a try catch block here. So if it fails, then basically Fahrenheit's going to be set to 100, so we'll know that it failed, most likely. We're just kind of goofing around a bit here. So now we want to go response equals await Axios, and then we're going to get again basically the forecast hourly URL, and then we want to set Fahrenheit equals response.data properties 0 temperature, and I just happen to know the format of the response, so nothing smart there. So we should let's just put temp and then Fahrenheit, and let's save and run this so we can quickly save this. Okay, so let's just test this block, and hopefully we will have a Fahrenheit or a temp property under the R property here. So the temp, it's 100, so it must have failed. So let's try and figure out why. So okay, so response data. Let's see. So let's do this. So let's see what we got for forecast. For forecast hourly, let's just make sure we got that correct. So we can just continue to test here and iterate. So once this runs, so it is sending this out to Lambda each time, and so we got the correct URL here, so that should be good. So when we hit this, we're doing this get. So there must be something wrong here with the. So it's response data properties, and then periods 0. So we could debug that by either console logging this out and we'd see it in the logs, or doing it just this way. I just happen to know where it is, so let's try it again. So now hopefully we get a temp of whatever the temp is. Okay, so it's 16 Fahrenheit, so it's pretty cold today. So okay, so we've got the temperature and we're bringing that in nicely. So let's do some other stuff with it. So let's go const Celsius. So we'll use the converter library from above, and then we want to go. We use our Fahrenheit variable, and then we're going to go to Celsius. This, and then we'll go to fixed 1. So we'll make this. We'll turn this into a string basically, and we want it correct to 1 decimal place. So let's just do. We'll change this to just be Fahrenheit, and this will now be Celsius. And so now we can do away with these two because we've debugged that. We can get rid of this, and let's put the name. So name here, and name was destructed here, which should give us just Denver, like it's here. Okay, so let's continue. It's a good idea to save every once in a while. You can enable autosave, but let's just do it this way. Let's test this block and have a look at the results we get. So let's see what we got. So we got the name, Fahrenheit, and Celsius. And if we run this, every hour or so, we can just update ourselves. So let's go ahead and send this to our Gmail. So we're going to send it to this account here. So it'll appear up here. So let's just add a Gmail block. Gmail send email. So I would normally set the name to something sensible. Gmail. Let's configure it. So we do have one, but let's just go through let's go Gmail 10. This is just another job that's running every hour. So we'll call it Gmail 10. So we'll authorize from Peter at Fusing, and we'll allow ourselves. Now, once this says Gmail 10, if you've already got a Gmail connector, you don't have to keep re-authenticating. You can just use anything, any one of these. So we'll call it Peter Piper, and we'll send it to Peter at fusing.com. And here we'll say temperature update. And here we will actually put an update. Now, we can either just put, fixed text in the message, or we can actually interpolate from variables. So let's do that. So the way we do that is we put a bracket at each end, which means evaluate everything within the bracket. And this in JavaScript terms, the backticks means interpolate variables inside these variables. So we can say the current temperature is something Fahrenheit and something Celsius. Okay, so all we need to do here is we need to fill these in, so we can come back up here. We've got these variables. So we could say that the current temperature in somewhere is, so let's just grab these variables now. So we're going to say grab this one, so it'll copy the block. So every block has a this should be the name. So every block has a context variable, which is basically grabbed from the dollar variable here. So it's $block Node.js refers to the name of this block, Node.js, which is why it's so important to set your names. And then returns, because it was a return from this block, and it's returns name, returns Fahrenheit, returns Celsius. So let's grab this next one. So we've got this is going to say the current temperature in Denver essentially is, and then we'll put this in here. So that's Fahrenheit, and then we did the Celsius conversion as well. So let's grab that. So it's minus 8.9 out there right now. And let's save this out and we'll run it top to bottom. So we'll run all blocks. Hopefully this runs top to bottom and I haven't made any mistakes. Probably have, but let's see. And then we should get an email. Ran. So we should get an email over here. Temperature update. So the current temperature in Denver is 16 minus 8.9. And so here's where it gets good. We could just send ourselves a message by putting at the top here. We need now a trigger before we deploy this. So let's run this on a time schedule. So when we configure a timer block, so we'll again, then basically we can configure this as, day of the week. So we could run it at a particular time in a particular time zone, day of month. So, someday. So we could run it every Sunday at 12 a.m. or, on the 1st and 11th and 19th, whatever, at 12 p.m. or whatever. Or we could just run it every hour. So let's just do that. And we can also let's add another way of running it. So these are triggers. Let's add a webhook emitter. So basically what this is, it allocates an endpoint on the Fusing server to run this. So I can copy this to the clipboard and we can deploy this. So this will actually deploy it to Lambda so we can actually run it. So we'll deploy this workflow. Hopefully it deploys cleanly. And I haven't changed the names here. They don't really matter. I did with this one. So once this is deployed, we can actually use curl or whatever to run this. So you can imagine again, if we were running this and we wanted to send an image from a trail camera, we can actually send that in a post request to this endpoint. It will then come in to the workflow, that data, and be available for whatever you wanted to do. So let's just say it was an image and we attached a file here. Let's just say this was I don't know, just a model for a TensorFlow model. Then in a Python block, we could import TensorFlow, and there's a path that will appear on that context variable with the file already inside the workflow that we'd have access to. So it's really, really flexible. So anyway, we've copied this flow. So now what we can do is sit here and basically every time we run this flow, so we can just use curl and this endpoint. So that's the endpoint we got. So we can use this to run the flow, and basically it should come back after a little while. So let's run it a few times. And by the way, the temperature updates, they have a limiter on there, so it may come back with 100 because it may actually fail, but let's just try and run it a couple of times here. So hopefully I'll get this out of the way. Should appear a couple of times here. It's actually failing because that API, if you hit it, basically what it does is it will, it's rate limited. So we would have to actually change this down here. Let's see. Where would we do this? Okay, yeah. So this is actually failing, and we don't have it wrapped in a try-catch block. This one will actually fail, this top one. If we moved all of this, so if we did it, let's see, this way around, then basically, so we could copy this into this try-catch block and do it all from here. Then basically it would run to completion. What happened, though, is it failed because we ran them twice in quick succession, and it basically, this would have barfed and actually would have escaped from this function, and that would appear in your logs. So anyway, let's do this again. So the other things we can do, so this is arbitrary code, any code, anything that'll run under Node.js that can be imported using the module syntax can be run, and we'll go grab that automatically. So a couple of other things that are cool about the platform is we have so the connectors. So Gmail 10 was the one we created. We can delete these, obviously. And let's just get rid of all these superfluous ones. Now, obviously, if we delete this one, then basically it's being used inside of Flow, so it will then become unavailable, and then this workflow will begin to fail. So we've got the connectors, and then we've got a thing called storage. So this is key value storage for if you wanted to, basically you can maintain state, or you do things like count, so for example, with the weather application, we may want to just say like, only send us an email if we hit a new maximum. So every time within the workflow, we could use this storage and basically do a get on the, where's the temperatures one? There it is. Basically get the new temperature. If it's the current temperature is higher, we could basically send an email. Otherwise, we could abort. So we're looking for new highs, new lows. There's all kinds of stuff you can do. So essentially anything you can write in JavaScript or Python, you can use this for, and we'll provide the connections. Let's add another connector. This time, let's just send ourselves a Slack message because I want to show you dynamic properties. So with Slack, for example, there are properties that need to be filled in. So the channels, the icon emojis, and these are peculiar to my particular account. So I can go through the Slack authorization or authentication and authorization, or I can just use an existing one. So I'll just use an existing one. Now, I can send, Slack has the concept of the notion of public and private channels. So here's where it gets interesting. When I now come to this field and wait a couple of seconds, it's actually going out to Slack and figuring out what channels I have. So then I can basically look at these channels. So let's just, let's send a message to another channel. So let me bring up Slack. So these are all the channels that it was looking at. Some channel, random, blah, blah, blah. These will all appear. And of course you can create different named channels. So the text might be, let's grab the text from up here and just say, let's just grab this text. Let's put this in, use interpolation syntax here as well. Temperature update for, and then again, we'll want those variables is, and we'll just, we'll just send the Fahrenheit version. So let's grab this so we can grab it from up here again. We'd have to run this block again. So let's do that. And that way all of these results will get populated. So we just run that particular block and then this all gets populated. So we've got the name here. And of course these would be populated because the flow runs top to bottom. So temperature update, we've got the name. And then let's grab the Fahrenheit temperature here. Okay, and let's put that in here. So we're basically sending ourselves a message saying to our Slack channel, another channel, temperature update for Denver is blah, blah, blah. Let's prop here, and once this populates, you got a bunch of different things. So let's just use Piggy, and we don't need it to, oh yeah, let's have it send a little fusing tagline in the message. So let's save this. Let's just run it top to bottom. We won't deploy it. Now, by the way, the deployment is the old deployment. It's the one that we deployed before we started making updates. So you do have to redeploy if you want to use for example, hit this endpoint. If I hit this now, it'll actually just run the old deployment. So we would need to deploy afresh to get that. So let's run this top to bottom, and hopefully what I'll see is a message come into my Slack account here. So let's just go down to the bottom here. Okay, and let's just run this top to bottom. So I'm going to run all blocks top to bottom. And hopefully we're now going to get a Slack message. Okay, so we got a Slack message. Temperature update for Denver is 16F. And again, if we deployed this, it's going to run every hour. So why don't we run it every minute, and we will deploy that. While I'm talking, you'll see additional messages come in. So let's save it and deploy it. And then in a couple of minutes, this should start every minute. I'll get an email, right, with a temperature update and this. So the cool thing about with timers down to a granularity of 1 minute, you could check to see if an RSS feed got an extra message, or that you got an extra record in a database or something, because we're going to have Postgres connectors and MySQL connectors and all kinds of connectors to different databases. And any other service that can webhook us, say you got Salesforce and you're populating a new customers into that, you could webhook a workflow with that data in it, and then basically process that data and do something useful with it. So anyway, once a minute we should get something. The other thing is, I probably should give you a demo of, let's go to, yeah, I've got a file called, so that's going to start sending me this thing every minute. I've got a file here, which is in my downloads folder, called hello text, which just has the word hello from file. So let's get out of that and let's send that. So it says hello from file within the file. Okay, so let's go ahead and include that inside each workflow. So we've uploaded it. It's 24 bytes long. It's text plain format. And what's going to happen is, if we deploy this or we test, we're going to see this file there. So let's go back to the node block and let's try and figure out where that actually is going to live, or where it lives coming into this thing. So we could basically just respond here. We could return as well as returning. So that's going to nag me every minute. We could return the context, this dollar variable, and then we'll be able to figure out exactly where this is. So, I mean, I already know where it is, but let's do this. So let's return that, and then we can basically explore what this actually does for us. So we now, once this comes back, we have this dollar variable. So we have, this gives you the context basically for the whole run. So we've got a trigger that triggered, it's just a dummy event in this case. That could be a timer event or a webhook event with all the payload and everything on it. Anyway, it's good. You'll find it in this area called attachments. So it's dollar attachments, and it's the name of the file. So basically you've got 3 values, and then there's a path to the actual file within the workflow itself. So we should be able to read this. If we go back to here and we import fs from nodefs, so this is the file handling thingy, and we should be able to basically read from it. So we should be able to go const file contents equals await fs promises read file. I'm just going to populate this. So I'm just going to read directly from the local file system, which is where that hello.txt file will be placed. And we're going to want to go $. Attachment, and then it's hello.txt, and then .path. And so that basically will be the attachment hello.txt path, and we can read in the file. Okay, so file contents. So let's do this. Let's not return this anymore. So I'll just comment that out. And hopefully, if I've done everything, we've got file contents. You'll notice this is using, again, the Microsoft Monaco editor, so it'll auto-populate if it knows about variables. Okay, so let's see what happens when we run this block. We should hopefully get the contents of that file, if I've done everything correctly, again. So let's see what we got. Alrighty, so file contents is hello there from file, which is exactly what we put into that file. So again, this could be anything. This could be a binary, which you could then execute. This could be all kinds of stuff, but basically anything you want to carry into every workflow as a file, you can do. So it adds a whole new layer of power to this. So let's grab this variable, and we'll also put that in the email. So we'll go, in our email, we'll now say, by the way, the contents of your file is, then we want to put it here, and then we can write this. So now, let's save that out, and let's run this top to bottom as a test. And hopefully, it's been doing this every minute, so I'm just going to get rid of these. Okay, so hopefully that was me running, and it says, by the way, the contents of your file is hello there from file. Okay, great. So we've got a file in, so bunches of different things. I won't demonstrate the storage. That's all working though. If you want to maintain some state across workflows, you've got access to storage. So works in pretty much the same way. So if I go back to my flow, we look at temperatures, and we run this top to bottom, so we'll run it. You'll see that we actually have access to that storage, that named storage, and any other storage we have. So basically in Node, actually what we want to do here is we want to do this again so we can actually see where it is. So let's just run this block, and then we'll look at the results, and you'll see that there's storage there, and you can just specify basically any JSON data can be transported backwards and forwards using this key value store. So storage mapping, it's right here. So we've got this thing called main, and this is the the ID for it. But basically, it's main refers to the name of the storage out here. We've done an update, so we should save it first. Refers to main. If I created another storage, and you can store as much as you want in each key value store, but you may want multiple stores. That's a kind of a demo of the way the platform works. We'll be introducing hundreds and hundreds of new integrations over the coming months, as well as actually providing you with some documentation and so forth. But yeah, that's basically the way it works. Thank you for watching.